So that I personally, I know who caused that situation. I do. It was your. I'm not even going to say, but you know who I'm talking about, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So we go to my mum's house.
The next day.
Who I have a very controversial relationship with anyway. And we were there. While we were there, we were trying to look for somewhere else to go to. And my mum, my homeless brother, who hasn't worked in ages, barely washes, and rinses my mum of all she has, was jealous of the fact that we were there.
Yeah.
So he caused arguments.
Purposely.
And my mum, who has no one else really in her life other than her kids and her grandchildren, obviously because this man in his 30s who's homeless and cannot look after himself is more important than her youngest child and his girlfriend. So she took his side.
Yeah.
So immediately, when it seemed as though she was going to, because she threatened to kick us out, and she was laughing while she was doing it because she's a bitter, twisted old woman with no hope in her life. So she needs that sort of a... It's my mum, I can say what I want.
I know.
And to be honest with you, I know for a fact her character.
I know.
She raised me with it. Abusively. But that's for another time. I hate my family. My family are all... I mean, they're... I'll say this at a different time, put it on my own channel, because it's not for now, is it? No. So we ended up moving to... We found something else online. We had to... I mean, we wanted at that point to find our own place. But it was coming to a head, and we realised that we just had to go with whatever was available. So we had somewhere which would be available in a week's time. But my mum just threatened to kick us out on the streets. And you don't do that, because we will think of something else, and we will fucking show that person who thinks they're powerful that they have no power. So we went to stay in a guest bed.
No, we went to Bassett's.
No, we went to go stay in a guest house for 2 nights.
Oh, yeah.
And then went to Bassett's house.
Yeah.
Bassett's a good friend of mine. A good friend of ours.
Very good friend.
Yeah, good friend of ours. The only person outside my relationship who I actually trust in this entire world. Because he's the only person who's never stabbed me in the back. Really? Yeah. He's a very powerful man. But he chooses not to.
He's lovely.
Yeah, he's lovely. But he's a very powerful man.
He's...
He chooses not to use that power
Yeah.
for malicious reasons. And when he has a friend, he's friends with them.
To be honest, I was a bit scared of him when I first met him, because he's like 6 foot and like massive.
He's built like a brick shit house.
Yeah.
But he's not a violent person.
No, he's like the BFG. If you've ever seen the BFG, Bassett is the BFG. He's huge, but he's the loveliest person you will ever meet.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah. When I turn into a millionaire, he will be my head of security, and I will pay him handsomely for basically doing nothing.
And he can live with us.
Yeah.
He can be our Joey.
We're going to have a mansion, aren't we? So we're going to have loads of room for him and anyone else who would choose to
allowed to live with us.
Be on the payroll to destroy people.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, so then we left Bassett's because obviously we found somewhere.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we were quite happy at that point, weren't we? But then, like idiots, we told her what happened at Sue's house, and she went, "Bing! That's a great idea. You guys are moving out to my mum's house."
Yeah.
So again, we had to move. But she told us she wanted us to move out because she no longer wanted to lodge her. But then while we were at her mum's house, because obviously at that point we thought, fuck it, we better find somewhere else of our own. But then she was like, "Oh, you got some posters of yours at my house. If I'm not in, my lodger can give them to you." It's like, what did you just say?
What?
Yeah. So obviously we were no longer comfortable living with anyone in that family, and we wanted a place of our own anyway. Because the end game, every single time we went into one of these houses, the reason was because we just needed somewhere, a base, where we could just survive and exist, so that we could find somewhere of our own and just be happy. Because we've been unfortunate in those circumstances. But as you'll come to learn throughout this video that the mishaps with regards to that have been because of other people, and really we've been trying our hardest, haven't we? But every single time we've tried to make a right choice, those people have ripped it away from us and put us back to year dot, I guess would be a suitable metaphor. So then we was at Mina's mum's house, and at this point I was no longer working with Magic Quill. I started working with them in February, and because of a stupid stage manager who was angry because I conducted interviews with the company director and we chose someone else to be stage manager, and he was up in her ass nagging, and it pissed me off, so I wanted him gone. And because he was in the office with her 24/7, and she's as soft as shit anyway, with no intellect or no real creative prowess. Why the beginning of my career I've trusted so many hacks and untalented, unprofessional dickwads. Anyway, so I was still a trained sculptor. I was still sculpting because the people who I was working with were really supportive. They were creative. They understood who I was as a character and as a person, and really appreciated my creativity and wanted to work with me further down the line. So I continued working with them. But at that point I was also working in the Denton Arms Hotel, which is another story all in itself.
Yeah.
God, we've got so many stories, haven't we? So many aspects. It's been an adventure, isn't it? Now that we sat here, it's been an adventure, hasn't it? Because
it's been a stressful adventure, but it's been an adventure.
Yeah, but we're out of all those situations, and we can quite clearly see that we are in freedom.
We can just laugh about it now.
Yeah. So then I was working at the DA, and I was working every single day. I mean every day, 10 hours, and I would bike to Denton, which is a 7-mile journey, and on swing shifts, or split shifts, I'd bike there, 7 miles, bike back, that's 14 miles, bike back for the evening, that's 21 miles, and bike back home, that's 28 miles.
You were doing that like between 5 to 7 days a week.
Yeah, but then on my days off, I was going to Hayford to make these statues.
And trying to fit writing in between all that as well.
And also trying to network and...
To be honest, I don't really know why you thought that would work, looking back on it.
It did.
No, working all those hours, working at Hayford as well, and trying to fit writing in.
All I'm trying to say is it did work.
Well, yeah, it did, obviously.
Oh, obviously it did work, yeah. So then, when we was at Mina's mum's house, and I was working all the hours of the day, you were still at Sportsway, weren't you? And you were quite happy at this point because they weren't being dickheads with you. I mean, the manager sometimes would be.
Yeah.
But you would learn to just think, fuck it, that's who he is.
Yeah.
So then one day you was walking round town or something, and you saw the father of 2 children whose mum we were good friends with and lived on the same street as, previously. Yeah. And he asked you where we were living.
Mm-hmm. So I told him where we were living.
Yeah. This is your story.
And he said, he asked if we liked it there, and I said it's all right, but could do with somewhere else.
Could be more comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he asked if I spoke to Danny if it was all right if we wanted to move in. It was a reasonable, more than reasonable rent.
Yeah, very reasonable. Yeah.
We at the time we thought we'd be stupid to turn it down.
Yeah, I mean where we were living at that moment, we didn't really have our own space, did we? Well, we did, but it was fucking
minuscule.
tiny. Yeah, and we were paying over £100 a week for that.
Yeah.
And and in this other house with this other guy, we would have run of the whole house.
Pretty much, yeah.
Our own room, which was the biggest bedroom in the house, and he was at work from 9 till 6 Monday to Friday, and then Saturday morning and afternoon as well, weren't he?
Mm-hmm.
So not only did we have the run of the entire house, but we were pretty much there by ourselves.
Yeah. The only thing we had to not necessarily cope with, but deal with would be the fact that his kids came round.
And they're
which
lovely.
was fine because we knew them previously anyway. So
I've known his kids for 10 years.
Yeah. I've only known them since we got together.
Yeah. Well, no, I haven't known his daughter for 10 years because she's only 8 years old. But I knew his son when he was a child. When he is a child. When he was like 5 years old. I used to go around there and play video games with my brother. Because my brother lived next door to him, and that's how I came to know them anyway. Then obviously you knew them through me.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it started to become apparent he couldn't actually afford his life. An eviction notice came through the door, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we had 2 weeks' notice to leave. So rather than looking for a new place and having to move again, we took it upon ourselves to pay off his debts.
Stupidly.
And then obviously the eviction was cancelled and his house was secure, and so was our home.
Yeah.
And then And then he was paying us back. We stopped paying rent, which was £60 a week, but we continued to pay our own bills because that's fair. And he was paying us back £100 a week. So we said that we were still going to pay rent, but every £100 he pays us back, we'll class as £160 paid back.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to be fair to him.
Yeah.
We wanted to help him because he was actually very depressed because he missed someone who probably doesn't deserve even being thinking about.
No.
Yeah. He was lonely, and lonely people think that anyone can make them happy, even though previously he had known otherwise.
Yeah.
So she moved in, and she just
she
wanted
came
to
she
cause
came there
problems.
temporarily to begin with. She came like every other weekend to begin with, didn't she?
Yeah, but
And
when
then-
she realised that she was making us uncomfortable, she decided to move in.
Yeah, and then
She didn't even ask him, she told him.
yeah, and then my birthday happened.
Yeah, and they were all on coke and drinking
For
whiskey.
those of you that don't know, coke is cocaine.
Yeah.
I don't know
They were
this
on coke and whiskey, and they decided to have an argument. And then that fucked
That
up
wasn't
the
just an
entire day.
argument. That was fucking beyond belief.
The downstairs living room area was clean. The next day, there were drawings on the wall, alcohol poured everywhere, and
Yeah.
everything was in disarray.
Yeah.
But they didn't seem to give a fuck or think they had it tidy up. But because we wanted to live comfortably, we took it upon ourselves to help them clean up. But then they didn't appreciate the fact that we weren't happy that a special day in our lives was ruined after the fact that we'd saved his house and stopped him from being homeless.
Yeah.
And also given him the ability to begin a new life with this
Woman.
woman. Yeah.
Girl.
So then she moved in, and he kicked us out basically, even after we saved his life.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even nice about it, was he?
No.
He started to try and harass us for more money, pretending we owed him money, which we didn't. We paid off his debts, and he started to pretend that we owed him money.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, actually, because you haven't even finished paying off your debt. We've just allowed you off, because it's only a small amount anyway, and you're struggling, and you can't even afford to look after your own girlfriend, who doesn't work and hasn't worked for ages. So we've allowed you to stop paying off your debts because you simply cannot afford to live at the minute. And he tried to blackmail us into giving his money, and it was like, start packing on fuming. So we thought, fuck it, we will. And we're going to allow you to deal with the consequences of your actions. But we'd already found somewhere because we'd already decided it's time to move out because we knew for a fact that these two characters they are nothing. They barely even exist in this world. I mean, one of them knows it for a fact. The other one is just too...
Bone idle to notice.
Yeah. Where's this person's kids at? I mean, I'll just say that.
Yeah.
I'll just say that. They're in the same town. But
They don't see him.
yes, this person considers herself a family person because she goes away to see other people. But her
Because
kids are in-
when she first moved in, we thought that her kids lived where she used to live,
Yeah.
where she come from to stay with our landlord. And then I can't remember how we found out, but we ended up finding out that her kids lived in the same town.
Because she used to say their names, and I have a lot of people on my Facebook, so I knew who her kids were instantly.
Yeah.
And I knew where they lived, and I knew what kind of lifestyle they had, and troubles they had.
But she never saw them. Well, as far as we were aware, she never saw them. She never said that she'd seen her kids that day, you know.
Yeah. I mean, she was always up for having other people's kids come around the house, but she was never happy for his kids to come around the house, was she?
No.
And actually, yeah.